Today we're going to explore the fascinating physics behind croissant lamination. This is a beautiful example of mechanical deformation in multiphase solid systems, where temperature and material properties determine the final microstructure. A croissant consists of alternating layers of dough and butter. The dough is primarily a wheat protein network containing starch and water, while the butter is a complex emulsion of fat crystals, water droplets, and continuous fat phase. Let's start with a fundamental question. Why does the temperature during lamination matter so critically for the final product quality? If the butter is too cold, below 10 degrees Celsius, it becomes brittle and fractures during rolling. If it's too warm, above 18 degrees, it becomes too soft and can leak out or mix with the dough, destroying the discrete layered structure. To understand this, we need to recognize that butter is a viscoelastic material. Its mechanical behavior depends strongly on temperature and the rate of deformation. The stress sigma in butter can be described as having two components: an elastic component proportional to strain epsilon with modulus E, and a viscous component proportional to strain rate with viscosity eta. The elastic modulus of butter varies dramatically with temperature. At 5 degrees Celsius, butter has a modulus around 10 megapascals, making it quite stiff. At 15 degrees, this drops to around 2 megapascals. At 20 degrees, it's less than half a megapascal. At 5 degrees Celsius, the elastic modulus is approximately 10 megapascals. At 15 degrees, it drops to about 2 megapascals. Through empirical observation and mechanical testing, bakers have determined that the optimal working temperature for butter during lamination is between 13 and 16 degrees Celsius. But why this specific range? At this temperature range, the mechanical properties of butter and dough become comparable. The dough has an effective modulus around 100 kilopascals, while butter at 15 degrees has about 2 megapascals. They're both in a regime where they can co-deform plastically without one dominating the other. Now let's analyze what happens during the rolling process. Each time we fold and roll the dough, we're applying a compressive stress that thins the layers. Consider a butter layer of initial thickness H0 sandwiched between dough layers. When we apply a rolling force, we create a compressive stress. After F folds with N fold symmetry, the final thickness is H0 times 1 over N to the power F. Let's do a back-of-the-envelope calculation for a typical croissant lamination process. We start with a butter block that's about 5 mm thick. We use a letterfold, which is a 3-fold. We perform this folding operation 3 times. The final thickness is 5 mm times 1 over 3 cubed, which is 5 divided by 27. This gives approximately 0.185 mm, or 185 micrometers. This is about twice the thickness of a human hair. An important question is, how many individual layers are created by this folding process? The number of layers is n to the power f plus 1, where the plus 1 accounts for the initial dough layer. With 3 letter folds, we get 3 to the third power plus 1, which equals 28 total layers, alternating between dough and butter. Here's a visualization of those 28 layers. Notice how thin each individual layer becomes. This fine-scale lamination is what creates the flaky texture. Now let's think about the stress state during rolling. This is a complex problem in contact mechanics. The rolling pin creates a contact zone where high compressive stresses are concentrated. The stress distribution is not uniform but peaks at the center of contact. The maximum contact stress is approximately the applied force F divided by pi times the rolling pin radius r times the contact length L. Let's estimate the actual stress magnitude in a typical rolling operation. A baker applying moderate pressure might exert about 200 newtons of force. A typical rolling pin has a radius of about 25 mm or 0.025 meters. The contact length along the rolling pin might be about 30 centimeters or 0.3 meters. Plugging in these numbers, the maximum stress is about 8,500 pascals, or 8.5 kilopascals. This is well within the plastic deformation regime for both dough and properly tempered butter. A critical question is, Why don't the butter and dough layers mix together during all this mechanical working? The key is that butter and dough are immiscible at the lamination temperature. The butter is primarily nonpolar lipids, while the dough is a hydrated protein-starch network. The interfacial tension prevents mixing. The interfacial tension between butter and dough is approximately 20 millinewtons per meter, which is substantial enough to maintain distinct phases. Now let's consider what happens during baking. This is where the magic really happens, transforming the laminated structure into a flaky pastry. During baking, heat flows from the oven at about 200 degrees Celsius into the dough. This creates a temperature gradient, with the exterior getting hot first while the interior takes time to heat up. 3 critical phase transitions occur during baking, each contributing to the final structure. First, as temperature reaches 32 to 35 degrees Celsius, the butter melts. The solid fat crystals transition to liquid, releasing water vapor that was trapped in the emulsion. The melted butter becomes a liquid that can migrate slightly, and more importantly, the water in the butter vaporizes, creating steam pressure. Second, between 60 and 70 degrees Celsius, the starch granules in the dough absorb water and gelatinize. They swell dramatically, up to several times their original volume. The swollen starch volume can be approximately 3 times the initial volume. This helps set the structure of the dough layers. Third, above 70 to 80 degrees Celsius, the gluten proteins denature and form a rigid network. This permanently sets the structure. The most important mechanical effect during baking is the generation of steam pressure, which forces the layers apart. As water vaporizes, it creates high pressure in the thin butter layers. This steam pressure pushes the dough layers apart, creating the characteristic flaky structure. The pressure can reach several atmospheres. The steam pressure follows the ideal gas law. Pressure equals nRT divided by V, where N is moles of water vapor, R is the gas constant, T is absolute temperature, and V is the volume available. Let's estimate the steam pressure generated. Suppose we have a thin butter layer that's now at 100 degrees Celsius. Butter contains about 15% water by mass, so the water mass is approximately 0.15 times the butter mass. At 100 degrees Celsius and 1 atmosphere, steam has a density of about 0.6 kilograms per cubic meter. The volume that this water wants to occupy as steam is much, much larger than the original butter layer volume. This creates enormous pressure if constrained. If the dough layers have already set and the steam can't easily escape, we can estimate the pressure buildup. The pressure is approximately the mass of water times R times temperature, divided by the molar mass of water times the layer volume. For typical conditions, this can easily reach 3 to 5 atmospheres of pressure, which is more than enough to separate the layers dramatically. Now let's go deeper into the microstructure of butter. Butter is not a simple material but a complex composite. Butter consists of a network of fat crystals surrounded by liquid oil, with small water droplets dispersed throughout. The fat crystals give butter its solid structure at room temperature. The fat crystals in butter exhibit polymorphism, meaning they can exist in different crystal structures depending on temperature and cooling rate. The alpha crystal form melts between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius and is relatively unstable. The beta prime form melts between 25 and 30 degrees Celsius. This is the desired form for lamination because it provides plasticity in the working temperature range. The beta form melts at 32 to 35 degrees but tends to be more brittle and less suitable for lamination. The mechanical response of butter depends critically on strain rate, not just temperature. This is fundamental to understanding the lamination process. The strain rate epsilon dot is defined as 1 over H times dH over dt, where H is the layer thickness and dH over dt is how fast the thickness is changing. If we plot stress versus log of strain rate, we see that at very low strain rates, butter behaves almost like a viscous fluid. At moderate rates relevant to hand rolling, it shows ideal plastic behavior. At very high rates, it becomes brittle. A dimensionless number that captures this behavior is the Deborah number, which compares the material's relaxation time to the observation time. The Deborah number equals the relaxation time tau divided by the observation time t. When Deborah number is much less than 1, the material behaves like a viscous fluid. When Deborah number is approximately 1, we get viscoelastic behavior, which is ideal for lamination. When Deborah number is much greater than 1, the material behaves elastically or brittly. For butter at 15 degrees Celsius during typical hand rolling, what is the Deborah number? The relaxation time for butter at this temperature is approximately 10 seconds. A rolling pass takes about 5 to 10 seconds. This gives a Deborah number of approximately 1, putting us right in the sweet spot for plastic deformation without brittle failure. An interesting question is whether the butter-dough interface can develop instabilities during rolling. Can we get wave-like patterns or mixing at the interface? We might imagine small perturbations at the interface growing into larger instabilities. However, this is prevented by the high interfacial tension and the comparable viscosities of butter and dough. The critical wavelength for Rayleigh-Taylor type instabilities scales as the square root of surface tension gamma divided by density difference times gravity. For butter and dough, this gives a critical wavelength of about 1 centimeter, which is much larger than the layer thickness, so instabilities don't develop on relevant length scales. Let's think about the energy required for the lamination process. Where does the mechanical work go? The total work equals the plastic deformation work plus the work to create new interfacial area plus frictional losses. The plastic deformation work is the integral of stress times strain over the volume being deformed. The interfacial work is the surface tension times the change in interfacial area. For typical lamination, which energy term is largest? The plastic deformation work is typically around 1000 joules per folding and rolling operation. The interfacial energy creation is only about 0.1 joules, which is negligible compared to plastic work. Friction accounts for perhaps 100 joules, significant but still smaller than plastic deformation. This analysis tells us that plastic deformation of the materials is by far the dominant energy sink, which is why matching the mechanical properties is so critical. Let's derive some scaling laws for how lamination parameters affect the final structure. How does the final layer thickness depend on the number of folds? The thickness scales as n to the negative f, where n is the fold number and f is the number of folding operations. This is an exponential thinning. After 4 letter folds, we have 3 to the negative 4, which is 1 over 81. So thickness is reduced by a factor of 81. Can we keep folding indefinitely to create arbitrarily many layers? What limits the process? Eventually, if we fold too many times, the layers become so thin they approach molecular dimensions and lose their distinct identity. A practical minimum layer thickness is probably 10 to 100 nanometers, below which the concept of a continuous butter layer breaks down. More practically, if the butter layers become too thin, they can fracture during rolling, especially if temperature control is not perfect. The gluten network in dough has a characteristic mesh size. If layers become thinner than this mesh, around 1 micrometer, the structure can be maintained. Let's analyze the heat transfer during baking more quantitatively. This is a diffusion problem. Temperature evolution follows the heat equation. Partial T equals thermal diffusivity alpha times the Laplacian of T. The thermal diffusivity equals thermal conductivity K divided by density ρ times specific heat Cp. For dough, the thermal diffusivity is approximately 1.2 times 10 to the negative 7 meters squared per second. How long does it take for heat to penetrate to the center of a croissant? The characteristic diffusion time scales as L squared over alpha, where L is the penetration depth. For a croissant with a characteristic size of about 2 centimeters, the diffusion time is 0.02 squared divided by 1.2 times 10 to the negative 7, which is approximately 3000 seconds. That's about 50 minutes, which is indeed comparable to typical baking times of 15 to 20 minutes, suggesting we don't fully equilibrate thermally. This calculation shows that a significant temperature gradient persists throughout baking. The outside is much hotter than the inside, which is why we get a crispy exterior and soft interior. The golden brown color and complex flavor of baked croissants comes from the Maillard reaction, which occurs above about 150 degrees Celsius. The exterior reaches temperatures above 150 degrees where Maillard browning occurs. The interior stays around 90 to 100 degrees where starch gelatinization dominates but Maillard reaction is minimal. Let me summarize the key physics principles we've uncovered in this analysis. First, viscoelasticity. The temperature critically controls butter's plastic behavior through its effect on fat crystal structure and elastic modulus. Second, strain rate matters. The Deborah number must be near 1 for optimal plastic co-deformation of butter and dough. Third, immiscibility. The interfacial tension between hydrophobic butter and hydrophilic dough maintains discrete layers. Fourth, exponential scaling. Layer thickness decreases exponentially with the number of folds. Fifth, phase transitions. Butter melting, starch gelatinization, and protein denaturation occur sequentially during baking. Sixth, steam pressure. Water vaporization generates several atmospheres of pressure that forces layers apart during baking. Finally, thermal gradients. Heat diffusion time is comparable to baking time, creating distinct interior and exterior zones. This analysis reveals the beautiful and complex physics hiding in what seems like a simple food item. The croissant is actually a sophisticated multi-phase composite material whose structure depends on precise control of temperature, mechanical deformation, and phase transitions.